Welcome to the November Tea Talk and Tasting. My name is Jake Krylik, and my wife Heather and I own Lake Missoula Tea Company. We started our business in October of 2012, so we've just recently celebrated our 7th anniversary and are pleased to say that, things are going really well. These talks, really, the reason that we're doing them is hopefully to educate you a little bit more about the virtues of loose leaf tea and get you a little more versed, I guess, in, again, more familiar, I guess, with the products that we offer. Tonight, we're going to be exploring a little more about chai tea. That's the theme tonight, but specifically some of the spices, the primary spices that go into chai. So when you walk away tonight, you're gonna blend, I guess, your own chai blend using some of these or all of these spices. I guess let me just start out by saying that we focused on 4 tonight. Ginger, some dried ginger here. This is the cardamom that's shredded. And then right next to it is the whole cardamom, the whole green cardamom in the pods, in the little seed pods. This is clove. So this is another one of our kind of primary ingredients in chai blends that we make. And then this, of course, is the cinnamon. And we'll talk a little bit more about cinnamon. There's some different varieties of cinnamon. And then this is just the black tea that we're using tonight is our Bogota breakfast. And that's a combination of the Colombian and the Nuxalbari base black. So it's a really strong, robust black tea. Grab my notes here. So to start with, and let me also introduce you to Lindsay. This is Lindsay Tucker. She is kind of our retail manager here and also does a ton of other work blending some of these teas. And then Zach is our new wholesale coordinator, and he also does some tea tending here at the shop. So, chai. The origin of chai comes from cha, just the C-H-A, and cha is the Chinese word for tea. It was altered by the Persians who added an I to cha to create the word chai. And once it spread from China, the Persians started to really influence lots of different countries and lots of different peoples. And that word chai really stuck in what we would consider, I guess, to be South Asia, Central Asia. That was the word or the term that was used to describe tea. The chai we think of today, as I mentioned, is black tea with spices. And in India, it's called masala. So most of you are familiar with our masala restaurant here in Missoula. But basically, masala means spices. The origins of masala chai date back 5,000 years and comes from an Ayurvedic beverage drunk by the royal court or in the region of what is now known as India. So as such, it was an herbal concoction. Didn't involve any real tea, but it was a beverage that was obviously drank for its medicinal slash health, health benefits. Ayurveda is a traditional Hindu system of medicine, which is based on the concept of balance in bodily systems and also balance in your sort of mental and spiritual states. It uses diet, herbal remedies, herbal concoctions, herbal treatments, and yogic breathing. So it's both a practical system of medicine, but it really is also a general philosophy of health and well-being. So it kind of crosses over, both to the preventative and then obviously when you are actually sick as well. So the Chinese invented black tea really to foster trade once they started to branch out from China. And so black tea was what was invented to really spurn the tea trade. And so the English, the other European nations, even us here in America, once the colonies were established, really prized black tea. And so the black tea, once, as I said, that it was invented, the chai that we now know today was really developed and was spread throughout Asia. But chai became a black tea with spices, and then milk and different sweeteners were added over time.
And for you guys who are new, this is the Scheherazade chai that you're trying right now. It's a really bold Indian-based tea, and that has ginger, cardamom, clove, and cinnamon.
The main purpose is for everyone to kind of experiment with their own blend and use some of these spices, ginger, green cardamom, clove, and cinnamon with the black tea to kind of create your own, and then take it home and see what you think. But so a little focus on botany and some of the plant taxonomy is necessary to really understand how teas got spiced. The spices used in preparation of chai teas all come from plants. They do not belong to a single plant family, but many of them are related. For example, the cardamom, the ginger, and the turmeric belong to the Zingiberaceae family, and myrtle, pepper, and cloves are part of the Myrtaceae family, so the myrtle family. And the spices also come from different parts of the plant. They don't all come from the same part. Seeds like mustard and sesame, bark like cinnamon. So this actually is, from the bark of the cinnamon tree. So, they kind of refer to as quills. Blossoms like cloves. So cloves are basically a flower bud. And fruits like pepper, and rhizomes like ginger. So the rhizomes are the tubers or the stalks underground. Spices and the plants they come from can be hard to classify, but are generally put into the category of aromatics with other perfumed plants. In medieval times, when the spice trade was really taking off, spices were commodities, highly sought after commodities, resulting in many wars, much conflict, much competition was created, but all of which, of course, drove a lot more exploration, a lot more economic development, all resulted from, the spice trade. Originally, it included things like silk from China, cotton, and even precious metals. Now, today, when we think of spices, it's really focused on the edibles, the things that we consume. Unlike condiments, spices are not eaten alone or added separately. They are ingredients blended into cooking dishes or beverages. And they're designed to provide strong, tangy, pungent flavors to our food and drink. Spices must undergo some processing after being picked, and this is just in general. They come from the tropics or the subtropics, and usually from non-Western countries. So we're talking about areas that were, subject to a lot of colonization. So obviously that affected, some of the social, economic, and political systems. So starting with cinnamon, cinnamon, it's a name for several species of tropical trees. In ancient times, the Romans, for example, used to love to cook with it, and they also used it in blending wine. It was definitely sought after in the Roman Empire. But the cinnamon comes from the inner bark of trees from the genus Cinnamonum and from the Lauraceae family, so the laurel family in Asia. And so this is a family of evergreens. So these are not deciduous trees, these are evergreens. Cinnamon is produced by cutting the stems of the tree, generally the smaller branches, maybe an inch or so wide. And once you cut those stems, you're trying to extract the inner bark and remove the woody parts. So let's just pass these along and people can kind of take a closer look at some of those cinnamon sticks there and the quills. But that's the process. And so when it dries, it forms strips that curl into rolls or sticks that can be then ground to form cinnamon powder. Obviously, all of these can be ground into powders, which of course are kind of easier to dissolve when you're blending. But obviously you can also use them in a coarser, way too. Like tea, over the past 2 centuries, it's pruned to keep them from growing tall, and so in a commercial sense is now maintained as a shrub. But like the tea plant, would grow as a small tree in the understory of the rainforest. Based on 2016 figures, Indonesia and China produced 75% of the world's supply of cinnamon. So that's where mostly it comes from. And there's 2 primary types. One, the cinnamon that comes from Sri Lanka, formerly Ceylon, is sweeter, more floral, and also more clove-like. And it's generally more expensive, the Ceylon cinnamon. I think maybe that it's used more for baking. But the other form, which is found in mainland Southeast Asia, is called cassia, and it's the Chinese cinnamon. And the name cassia comes from a Latin and Hebrew translations from the verb quatsa, which means to strip off bark. So logical in terms of how the plant was ultimately used. Okay, so some of the health benefits and properties of cinnamon. It's a warming agent, so it really helps to improve your circulation. It enhances digestion and alleviates stomach issues, so it does have some good stuff for your guts. It also enhances the bioavailability of other herbs and spices, so it helps bring out other things. Thanks. Frequently used with black pepper and ginger to soothe cold symptoms. So something to think about when you're sick. And then the distinct smell and flavor comes from the oily part of the plant, which is very high in the compound cinnamaldehyde, is what the chemical compound is. And researchers believe that most of cinnamon's powerful effects on health and metabolism come from this chemical compound. Cinnamon is loaded with antioxidants, such as polyphenols. In a recent study comparing the antioxidant activity of 26 spices, cinnamon was the clear winner, outranking superfoods like garlic and oregano. So it's very powerful, and it can also be used as a natural food preserver. So lots of really good things that cinnamon does once it's inside your body. All right, next up is the cardamom right here. And comes from Arabic and means to warm. So another spice that is a warming agent, and is native to India. 2 main varieties, green or what they call true cardamom. I think there's a bunch of other different colors for the cardamom, but the other main variety, as I said, is the ammonium, and have both floral and kind of fruity overtones. The essential oil and oleoresin, naturally occurring mixture of resin and oil, are important in producing the perfume or the scent of the cardamom. How does it grow? It grows in the understory throughout the mountainous state of Kerala, and likes basically the higher elevations, grows in the higher altitudes. But it's a plant that's like a couple feet tall, so not huge or anything. Like ginger and turmeric, it's a rhizomatous plant. So again, has the tuber. It is the 3rd most expensive spice in the world after what's 1 and 2? Saffron's 1, and what's number 2? Vanilla, yep, you got it. When cooking or blending with cardamom, it's best to grind it immediately before to preserve its medicinal and aromatic qualities. This is because its essential oils are extremely volatile and will evaporate and break down quickly if not stored properly. So, again, keep it sealed, but, don't grind it or don't shred it, until you're ready to use it. Next up, as far as our spices, are the cloves. Cloves come from the Myrtaceae family and are a tropical evergreen. Native to the Moluccas. So the Moluccas in Indonesia, this is the original Spice Islands, an island chain in Indonesia. But they're now grown commercially all over Asia, Madagascar, Sri Lanka, India, Pakistan, Zanzibar. And the legend has it that in order to thrive, clove trees must always see the sea. So that implies that it grows close to the ocean, grows close to the water. So it obviously has maybe some kind of a symbiotic relationship with the salt water and the salt air. And the word clove comes from the French word clou, which means nail. So you see kind of the spiky part, and then of course you've got the kind of the larger bulb on the end. And this was one of the first spices to be introduced to Europe. They say maybe as early as the 8th century. Taste is pungent, strong and sweet with a bitter astringent flavor. Some would also describe it as hot. They possess a distinct and undeniable warmth when consumed, and it really leaves an intense sensation in your mouth. But yeah, it's got a mouthfeel similar to nutmeg. That flavor comes primarily from chemical eugenol. If you ingest too much of it or you apply it like a lot of clove oil, apparently it can be damaging to your liver. You can cook with it, and generally you have to put it in water and heat it up a little bit to kind of break some of that down. But a lot of people like to grind it, into the powder. And cloves are commonly used to flavor hot drinks, like hot apple ciders and mulled wines. You'll have cloves in, but of course they're a key ingredient in many of the chai tea mixtures. Last but not least, we will talk about ginger. And ginger, it's an herbaceous plant, also comes from the Zingiberaceae family. It is the root or the rhizome that the spice is derived from and can be eaten fresh. People use it in so many different ways. Many ginger candies out there. I know our daughter Violet really likes the ginger candies. So it's ubiquitous now in terms of how ginger is used in cuisine. It has a strong flavor, pungent and lemony. Also is used in both sweet and savory dishes. But to me, it has that distinctive bite. When you really taste that ginger, it has that distinctive bite. Ginger is grown all over the tropics, but can also be planted and grown in cooler, drier climates. India is the largest producer, but China, Indonesia, Japan, East and West Africa, the West Indies, Brazil, Australia, all grow and process it. I think here in North America, you may be able to grow it in a greenhouse. Depending on where it's grown, it has a pretty wide range of flavors. So the profiles can be very delicate, like the ginger that comes from Bengal in Western India. In Australia, they say it's extremely spicy. So I don't know if that has to do with the soil types in Australia. And then like in West Africa, it has strong notes of camphor. Ginger is the primary spice and provides the base for chai tea. And most chai recipes have greater concentrations of ginger, so you might want to put a little bit more ginger in your blend than some of these others. So ginger is very rich in potassium. So potassium, obviously, we very much need that in our bodies, and also supports digestion, immunity, and circulation. It is a known anti-inflammatory and is also good to reduce cholesterol and is a very effective antidote to nausea, vomiting, any kind of stomach discomfort. Get some ginger root in you. I guess one thing that's really the beauty of all this is it's all up to you how, people have been creating their own tea blends and chai blends for a long, long time. So, if you have the motivation and energy, you could obviously go out and buy some of these spices, in the bulk section at the good food store or, online, and then obviously blend them yourself at home. It's totally doable. In today's kind of definition, it implies that it's a black tea, any kind of black tea with spices.
Oh,
That's the definition.
Okay.
Yep. But as I said, like before tea was discovered in India, they were drinking it, like I said, more of an Ayurvedic, which was just like, kind of herbal, herbal concoctions that they created. So you could certainly do that too. But the chai does imply that it has a caffeinated base, which is the black tea. I think the biggest thing is, one, it's fun to kind of blend your own teas. It's just, it's a fun process. But I think you also are getting a little bit more in tune with why you're drinking it and, again, why it's good for you when you are, kind of putting your hands on it. And, clearly, our motto here, drink tea, live longer. We are fervent believers that it's going to allow you to have, a healthier, longer life if you are, a fairly religious tea drinker, like we are, or we've become.